All right, everybody, we're so excited that you're joining us today for our first of 2023 Jamf Breakfast Club. And I'm so excited to have two of my dear friends here with us today, Curtis Armstrong and Christina Gramillion, two amazing fellow Jamfs that have a heart for education and really, just it's our daily mission to get our tools in the hands of educators in the classroom. So today on Jamf Breakfast Club, we're going to hear from both Curtis and Christina about how teachers can leverage our tools, because oftentimes, IT makes the purchase and we know the management is there, but we really don't know what our role is as an educator using those management tools. And I keep referring to our role as I was a former educator, so it's really hard for me to not still consider myself a teacher, but most of all, still definitely a learner. So today we are going to take a little trip in the day in the life of using Apple technology with Jamf tools. So as we get started, again, Apple device management and education. And if you're thinking as a classroom educator, I don't really manage my devices. You do more than you think you do. And we're excited to hear how you can do a little bit more to really increase the student engagement and instructional time given back to you when you're able to do a little bit of the lifting as far as management in classroom. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Curtis to share with us how Jamf Teacher works in Jamf School. So Curtis, take it away.
Thanks, Emily. With the introduction of Emily, thank you very much. My name is Curtis Armstrong. Here to talk a little bit about Jamf School and specifically some of the apps to help teachers out. So when we think about management, as Emily mentioned, a lot of that happens sort of behind the scenes. And we can really break down Apple device management into sort of three different buckets within education. We've got our devices, and those within Jamf School, we manage Mac OS, so your MacBooks, iPads, iPhones, as well as Apple TVs, using the power of Apple's automated device enrollment to ensure that those devices are managed with Jamf School right out of the box. The next bucket there is around that management capability. So deploying apps without the need for an Apple ID, setting certain restrictions and configurations through all the way through to leveraging identity services like Azure and those managed Apple IDs. Finally, we look to use the Jamf School system in more creative ways to help provide tools to enhance teaching and learning for the student, for the teacher, and even the parent. And that is really what we're going to focus on over the next few minutes. So I'm sure if there's any teachers out there, they have often heard this from their students. So the need for various applications and the need to sort of manage those devices when they're in the classroom outside of sort of what IT will typically do. Students that have forgotten their passcodes, which ultimately affect the instructional minutes that are finite in every day, and you don't want to lose those. And then along with that, how to maybe update iPads and the applications that are on those. So we have that capability within our application called Jamf Teacher. And we'll talk also about the application called Jamf Student. Obviously, one goes on one set of devices, one goes on the other. And the goal of these applications is really to try to focus that classroom time to enhance those instructional minutes and make the best use of them without burning them away with things that really could be solved using tools like this. So Jamf Teacher is a native iOS and macOS app that can be easily configured by IT to work on a teacher's Apple device. Teachers often need to help focus students on a number of apps and websites during a specific lesson or a specific class. And with Jamf Teacher, a teacher can choose exactly which apps, which websites, and there's a host of other configurations that their students might require during any given time period. After that lesson ends, the iPad returns to its default state. And the best thing is the teacher can prepare that choice of applications, configurations, websites in advance, so that when lesson time comes around and students are up and running in just a few taps of the iPad by the teacher. And here are some examples too. I mentioned the app restrictions, the websites, things like that. Attention, if you need to grab the attention of some or all of your students, that's a really easy way to do it. We've also tried to help out in a few other ways. Now, there's a fairly systematic method for installing applications on an iPad, and that will often ultimately need to come from IT. And I'm sure schools have developed different ways to facilitate that workflow. So let's say a teacher might visit go to a webinar, or even nowadays a live seminar or something like that, and hear about some great apps that they want to integrate into their classroom. Typically that process is they need to either write an email or knock on IT's door, leave a post-it note or something along those lines to try to get those apps onto devices in their classroom. So we've provided a little bit of a shortcut here. We don't go around the process, we just make it a little bit easier. And with that teacher app and the App Store installed on the device, teacher does not need to be logged in, does not actually acquire those apps through the App Store, but they can use the share function. They can find the app that they want and very easily make a request for how many applications they want and the reason they need them. That goes right to IT, and then IT can procure them and deploy them to the devices that the teacher needs them installed on. So a really great time-saving process on that as part of that teacher app. Don't get me started on passcodes. Passcodes are incredibly important. They help protect the data that's on that device from everyone else, right? But passcodes can also kind of affect those instructional minutes too when students forget them. So we provide a method inside of the teacher app that makes it really easy for the teacher to send the command to clear that passcode from that device. Now, if you have a passcode requirement set on those devices, it still allows you to clear that passcode, and then a short time later, the student will get that message telling them that they need to set a new passcode again. But it gets them in, it gets them to the work that they need to do as quickly and efficiently as possible. There's some other great things that come along with this that we'll dive into here. App lock, which allows a teacher to select a subset of the applications that are already installed on the device and hide all of the others. So it really allows that student to focus, especially with the younger kids too, trying to find an app on an iPad that has 60, 70, maybe even 100 apps on it can be a challenge. So this allows that teacher to narrow down that focus to just a few apps for the lesson that they want to do. Same thing with websites too. Teachers may want to limit or have a select website that they want, or websites that they want students to go to. So it's really easy to do that in Jamf Teacher with Safari. And we'll take a look at both of those. And then doing things in the moment is, kind of fun for some, but not for others. So being able to plan ahead with the lessons is really important. Allows teachers to sort of plan out what applications, what restrictions, and what websites they want their users, their students to visit during a particular class period. So let's dive into some videos and take a look at how that works. Oh, let's take a look at a little demo of doing app lock. There we go. So we launched the teacher app. We go in here and we have our classes that are coming in from Jamf School. We've got a single student in our class at this time, and they show up. And what's great about Jamf School as well is all that needs to be required is that the student is on the internet. Does not have to be in proximity or anything like that. As a teacher, we're going to select a handful of applications of the vast variety of applications that we have installed on the device. And when that happens, you can see on the student device that all of those other applications go away. So they're still resident on the device. They're just hidden away from distraction from the student. So that's the app lock, really easy to use. And note too that at any point, we did set a time for those restrictions to clear. But at any point, a teacher can go in and clear those restrictions if they happen to finish up early. All right, on to our next little demo here. So next demo we're going to show is on Weblog. This is how we can limit Safari browser down to just allowing a user to go to a specific website or websites of the teacher's choosing. Let's go ahead and see how that works. So I'm on my teacher application here, and I go into the Weblog settings. I can paste or I can type in a URL, an internet address that I want my students to go to. I can add multiple ones. I can give them nice, easy names to recognize. I can set the amount of time. I also have the option to lock them into Safari if I don't want them to go anywhere else. But in this case, I'm allowing them kind of free reign. I just want them to go to a website, because as you know, it can be really hard to get a whole bunch of students at the same time to go to one website. But see, as you can see, those websites that the teacher has selected go into the bookmarks section of Safari and allows them to navigate to those very easily, so everyone can be on the same task at the same time. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to take both of those concepts that we just learned and combine them into a lesson that we can save, use as many times as we want, leverage in the future. We can even share it with our fellow teachers as well. So let's take a look at building a lesson. So we'll come into our familiar interface here. We go to our teacher section here, and we go to lessons. And like I said, you can create as many of these lessons as you'd like. And it's the same sort of layout here. We have some things to choose. We have to give it a name first, so it makes it easiest for us to recognize down in the future and in the moment too, right? We're going to select the applications that we want as part of this lesson. We'll go along and we'll check off all those things that we want to make sure are part of this lesson. Wow, there's a lot of them that we're checking here, but you can see it's still a very small subset of the total amount of apps available. And then we're going to go into our lessons. I mean, our web blocks, our links, and we're going to add in a single link this time into it, paste that right in. And then we're also going to set some functionality settings here. We can do things like turn off the camera, turn off spell checking and autocorrect, which I just did, and turn off AirDrop if we would like. And a good thing to note too is that these don't ever supersede the settings that the IT admins have already configured on the device. They can be more restrictive, but they can never be less restrictive than those default settings that were set. So that's how we created a lesson. And you'll notice that there's even a little share button next to each one of these to enable a teacher to share that lesson that they've created with other teachers. All right, next up in lessons, we're going to see how those get actually deployed to our student devices. So we're going to come into our teacher app again. We're going to open our class. And we've got our familiar student here. And you'll see in that button, in the buttons across the top, we're going to click the Start Lesson button. We can choose our time. Let's say maybe we want to make it 50 minutes at this point. And we select the lesson that we want to deploy, and that immediately gets configured on all of the devices that you've chosen. Now, something to note too is we only have one student in here. But if you have multiple students, you can also create groups of students for differentiated learning, things like that. And you can apply a lesson to one group and a different lesson to another. So so very dynamic. They work in very cool ways to help with that classroom instruction, and also from a planning perspective for teachers, so they don't have to feel pressured to do all of those cool technology things right in the moment. They can plan ahead and everything is good. All right. One more little demo I want to show you here on with Jamf School is resources. So the Jamf teacher and the Jamf student apps provide certain resources that those users can access. For example, if you have applications that you don't want to necessarily automatically install on devices, you can make them available as on demand. And that's a great way to, not clutter up the iPad with tons of stuff that users might not need, but that they can leverage and go and get if they want to. You can even add things like installing web clips and things like that to make web resources even easier to access. Another piece is updating applications. For the applications that are installed on the device, and if there's an update available, and if Jamf School hasn't already stepped in and done the update in the middle of the night or something like that, users can go in and manually update those applications. Again, no Apple ID required, no access to the App Store needed, or anything like that. Now, how do we learn how to do this? As teachers, sometimes you get introduced to lots of new tools, and you get sort of maybe the demand or the command to say, you need to install this tool and you need to learn how to use it in your classroom. Here's some training, maybe, if you're lucky. But we want to make this really easy for teachers to use and not feel pressured to have IT set everything up so you can try it out. So we created a website called Jamf Educator, which has lots of resources on and a simulator. So it's a really easy way for teachers to sign in or to try this out. Doesn't require any interaction from IT. They can try it on their own. It's free. It's really easy, and it replicates that scenario of being in the classroom and using this tool so that the teachers can get comfortable learning how to use it and the things that we talked about earlier. And then, if it's something that they do feel is really important to have, they can leverage, they can go to IT and request that be implemented in their environment. You also get a little badge once you've completed it, which is always awesome. Add it to your badge catalog. And there's a QR code there, but it's educator.jamf.com. So let's shift over real quick to the student needs. So students often want to, they have questions about things, obviously. Some of them don't want to make a spectacle of themselves. So we wanted to make it easy for them to do that. They may need additional applications. They may have forgotten their passcodes, and they may want to update their applications and their iPads. So how do we do that? Well, we have the student app, very similar, in theory to the teacher app, but it's the other side of the equation here. And it really gives students that ability to do a few things with their iPads. Again, never going to override what IT has set or what the teacher has set or anything like that. But it gives them some functionality, like if you notice in the screenshot here, the ability to raise their hand. So it's a digital version of raising your hand, and it sends a little notification to the teacher, letting the teacher know that that student needs a little extra help. They can initiate a chat. The teacher can initiate a chat with a student, can also initiate chats with the whole class of students or a group as well. And those messages are not in the Messages app like Apple's Messages app. That's actually self-contained inside of the student and the teacher app. And it allows them to either show a message that doesn't need a reply, or engage in a back and forth conversation. Probably the most often question I get is, can students chat with students? And the answer to that is no. It is just really a teacher to student conversation. So let's take a look here at just some example, a little workflow with the student app. Looks very similar. They can come in here, they can get those on-demand applications that have been scoped to student devices. Makes it really easy, again, not cluttering up the device with lots of extra stuff. They can go in, they can get those very easily. You can even create little catalogs of applications that is really easy for them to download. So it makes it a really great resource. All right, next up, we'll also take a look at let's see, what are we looking at here? Oh, okay, yes, OS update. App updates, of course. And took a little bit to kick in there. But again, allowing that student to get in and update those apps maybe ahead of a scheduled update. Students also have the ability to see a few kind of summary information about their device, also kick off an inventory update back to Jamf School to make sure that Jamf School has the freshest set of info about that device. Update the software if you make that available to them. Also, if they're in the system device already and forgot their passcode, they can also clear that requirement themselves if they need to. So again, great way to do it. Last up, parent app. If you have ever worked in a school, which I'm sure most of you have, and you've probably gotten a call or an email or a handwritten letter from a parent who has a student who has brought their device home and maybe is using it all hours of the night. And they want you as the IT folks or as the school to, lock that down, to manage that device. And wouldn't it be great if you could give them the power to do that and be parents, So let's take a look at that. It's very easy to set up. You can enable or disable that on the Jamf School end. When you enable it, it will provide a QR code within that student app. And the parent can get the parent app free from either the Apple App Store or the Android Store, and install that on their device, use the camera to scan the QR code. And when they do that, it links that application on their device to the student device, giving them, similar to the teacher, a little mini management capability for that device during specified off-school hours, which you set up in Jamf School. So let's take a look at a little bit about what that looks like. You can, if you've got multiple students with multiple iPads, you can bring those in, no problem. And parents can do a few things. They can enable an app lock for a period of time. We'll also show a schedule in a sec. And basically limit that device down. Let's say they, want to prevent that user from their student from going to any websites or things like that. They could lock it down hypothetically to something like the Notes app. Now, I mean, I have a lot of fun with the Notes app, but students maybe not so much. And so they can set those limitations. They can set different restrictions. They can turn off the camera. All those things like that that teachers, that parents might want to be able to do. You can also limit functionality in terms of categories, or you can, like you see here, turn off specific features and functionality for that time period. Now, when that time period ends, let's say you set it to run until 6 a.m. At that point, those restrictions that the parent have set will automatically clear off that device so that that device is ready to use for school in the morning. All right. Last thing I wanted to show here was a rule type. So we can define these different kinds of rules, as I mentioned, and we can go in, again, set that entertainment section, but we can also create a schedule. So you teach, as a parent, you don't have to remember, I got to turn this stuff on every night. You can configure it for what days of the week it runs and for how long those restrictions set. And then once you save that, it's a set and forget it kind of thing. And that iPad will be locked into those settings that parent has established for the time that they have set it for. So a really great way to give parents a little bit of comfort and ease, knowing that their students are doing the right things at the right time on their devices.
All right, Curtis, thank you so much for sharing with us all of the things that Jamf Teacher can do in a Jamf School instance. Empowering parents, empowering students, giving, encouragement and, peace of mind to educators in the classroom sounds just wonderful. One thing I failed to mention at the beginning of this broadcast was, please, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please post those. We will be live when this is airing to answer any questions that you may have. And with that, we're going to kick off the second part of our presentation with the ever so famous Christina Gramillion. And she is going to take us through a very similar experience Curtis took us through, looking at Jamf Teacher in the Jamf Pro instance.
In Jamf Pro, we see slight differences from what you're used to seeing in Jamf School. Here we see some of the icons are not there like they were in Jamf School, but we still see some of the functionality. We're going to look at App Lock now, where the teacher is selecting the different apps that the students will need during the instructional time. And once all of the app selections are made, as indicated by the check marks, then we're going to see the teacher select the apply button, and once the student's device responds, we'll see all of the apps on the device turn into just the few that the teacher prescribed. This helps eliminate any accidental distractors. Once the teacher is done, she can clear the restrictions and we'll see the device return to normal. Next, we're going to look at Web Lock, where we can lock the students into specific URLs. We'll see the teacher enter the ABCya website, making certain that she taps return or he taps return afterwards so that the apply button will illuminate. We'll tap apply. And next we'll see that no other site can be reached. But if we add a new tab, we can go to ABCya and we see that those websites are part of the favorites. Even if the student tries to, use the search engine for something more scholarly, they still won't be able to go anywhere other than where the teacher prescribed for them, as indicated in the favorites. We'll see the students trying to get to another math facts game, and no, there's no go there. So we'll clear that restriction. And now let's look at some device restrictions within themselves. Different genres of apps, if the MDM admin hasn't blocked those already. Device functionality, such as camera, Safari, AirDrop, if you're having issues with AirDrop, that can be turned off as well. Once those things are turned off or on, we will see the device respond as indicated. The camera, I believe, was turned off. I know iTunes was, so was the Game Center. So we'll see some icons disappear once the device is responding to this command. And there we have it. Again, the teacher just clears the restriction by tapping that clear restrictions button there. And then the device will return back to its original state with all the icons appearing. Another and last feature of the Jamf Pro side of the Jamf Teacher app is you still have lessons that you can create, but you just can't share them. You can enact them for a certain amount of time, keeping in mind that you can use the clear restrictions button to get the students out of that lesson if it needs to come out before the time elapses. And we see here that the lesson on geometry with the Khan Academy and the LMS has been enacted, and now the teacher will clear those restrictions, or end the lesson, mind you. Now the iPad is back to its original state. Just reviewing, we can create lessons. They just can't be shared, and we create them by putting a name and a description. That's not required, but the name is. And there you can list your allowed apps and links, and yeah. Those are the differences between Jamf Pro making use of Jamf Teacher as opposed to Jamf School.
Hey guys, welcome back. I just want to thank you all for taking the time to meet with us today and hearing just a little bit more about our tools and how we can leverage Apple technologies and Jamf tools in your learning environment. We are always eager to hear stories and hear from our customers about best practices you're using in your classrooms and in your learning spaces. So please feel free to reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter. If you can find us on Facebook, find us on Facebook. But we really want to hear your story and leverage your voice using the tools that best help students succeed in their classrooms. So once again, I'm Dr. Emily Froese, and I want to publicly thank Curtis Armstrong and Christina Gramillion for walking us through those demos and sharing their voice about Apple technologies and Jamf tools in the classroom. So we'll see you again next time here on Jamf Breakfast Club.